So it is worth mentioning that it is not easy to separate science from politics. This is because science is often used as a tool to support certain political and economic agendas and certain legislative decisions and policies. This is because scientific research is often funded by governments, and thus, the results of the research may be biased in favor of certain political ideologies or economic interests. Furthermore, the results of the research may be interpreted differently, depending on the user's political and economic views. Even if the more radical claims are valid, such as the idea that governments should intervene in the free market to reduce carbon emissions, or that renewable energy sources should be sped up despite the economic implications, there is no straightforward solution as one takes initiatives because of the predictions on climate change. These types of predictions and expectations are questionable to begin with. Even if these types of solutions were implemented, it is difficult to know how effective they would be in the long term. And with that, welcome, dear listeners, to another episode of the Diplomacy and Discourse. I'm your host, AR, and today's episode delves into the intriguing yet daunting topic, the intersection of wicked problems and systems thinking. This is part 1 of our discussion, where we explore the complexity of wicked issues, their cross-cutting and transnational nature, and how systems thinking offers a lens to better understand and address these monumental challenges. The complexity of climate change and the uncertainty about the future make it challenging to make precise predictions about the impact of any given policy. This uncertainty and complexity will accumulate errors over time, as new data and findings are discovered that contradict previous beliefs. This could lead to policies being implemented that are not effective, or worse, could even have a negative impact on the environment. As such, it is important to consider the potential risks and benefits of any given policy, especially when it comes to climate change. Due to errors accumulating over time, inconsistencies in measurement can become more noticeable as the measurement progresses. Therefore, even 50 years from now, there will still be a large error bar around the projections. This means we won't be able to measure the positive or negative effects of anything we do right now. So how can you solve a problem when you can't measure the consequences of your actions? And what is the solution? Systems thinking is all about looking at how different parts of a system interact and influence one another. When you take a step back and look at the whole system rather than isolated elements, we can uncover root causes, identify patterns, and develop strategies that address complex challenges effectively. A systems perspective recognizes that a system is comprised of interconnected parts that work together to achieve a common purpose or goal. It examines relationships, patterns, and feedback loops to understand how the system works. It also looks at how small changes can have a big impact. A feedback loop is a process in which the output of a system is used as an input to the same system. A feedback loop can be negative or positive, depending on whether the output of the system serves to reduce or increase the input. Negative feedback loops serve to reduce the output of the system, while positive feedback loops serve to increase the output. Utilizing systems thinking or a systems perspective method is essential because it helps to better understand what might help or impede developmental sustainability. Meaning, we can gain better insights into the underlying structures and patterns that influence the behavior of a system. It helps to identify the root causes of problems and find effective solutions by considering the broader context and understanding the relationships between different elements. Applying a systems perspective can be beneficial in many domains, such as organizational management, environmental sustainability, public policy, and healthcare, to name a few. This is regarding the emergence of similar issues such as the racial wealth gap and health issues such as obesity. The systems perspective enables a more comprehensive understanding of complex situations and supports the development of strategies that consider the interactions and interdependencies within the system. Using this approach, planners hope to improve the health of the population. But what can really be expected from it? The program should be designed to promote systemic change by addressing the underlying causes of the issue. This means that policymakers should focus on developing solutions that can be sustained over the long term, not short-term fixes. Additionally, the program should focus on creating equitable outcomes for all people, regardless of race or socioeconomic status. You've got all kinds of systems to think about. Natural systems, like ecosystems, social systems, such as families and institutions, technological systems, such as communications networks, economic systems, like markets and supply chains, and organizational systems, like companies or governments. Understanding these types helps us better analyze their interconnections. So, natural systems are systems that occur in the natural world, such as ecosystems, weather patterns, or biological organisms. Natural systems often have complex interdependencies and feedback loops. Social systems are systems that involve human interactions and relationships, such as families, communities, organizations, or societies. Social systems can include components like individuals, groups, institutions, and cultural norms. Technological systems are systems that involve the design, development, and operation of technology, such as computer systems, transportation networks, or communication systems. Technological systems often consist of various interconnected components and processes. Ecological systems are systems that involve the relationships between organisms and their environment. Ecological systems can include ecosystems, food webs, or the interactions between different species. Economic systems are systems that involve the production, distribution, and consumptions of goods and services within a society. Economic systems can include factors such as the market dynamics, supply chains, or economic policies. And lastly, organizational systems. Organizational systems are systems that involve the structure, processes, and relationships within an organization, such as a company or government agency. Organizational systems can include components like departments, teams, workflows, and communications channels. And so with that, it's important to note that these types of systems are not mutually exclusive, and many real-world systems can exhibit characteristics of multiple types. Additionally, different disciplines and fields may define and categorize systems differently based on their specific focus and objectives. Systems thinkers believe that only viewing one part of a method, process, or plan of action can isolate other functioning variables around the entirety of the system can disregard other variables that might influence its potential for positive impact. By considering the system as a whole, with all its interconnected components, it's possible to understand how different variables interact with one another and how changes in one area might affect the system as a whole. This helps to identify potential problems before they arise and to plan for more effective solutions. As with the case of obesity, it is a complex phenomenon that combines a variety of factors, such as improper institutional reforms, social media, physiological, psychological, socioeconomic, as well as environmental factors. There is a strong interaction between all these variables. Individual concerns such as physiology, exercise habits, dietary choices, and occupation are all factors that impact our health. There are many other factors at play, in addition to the individual, such as the locally built environment, the accessibility of junk food that is readily available, and the practices of the larger food industry, including trends, portion sizes, sugar content, and fat content. All of these influences interact mutually with one another, making obesity a complex system in terms of the reciprocal relationships between them. As a result of disregarding a systems thinking approach, merely relying on basic linear cause and effect solutions for one method can neglect other reciprocal relationships and lead to failure. This is because most programs are directed to think only within the boundaries of the programs they are a part of. Systems thinking allows you to zoom out and consider other factors outside of a program's conventional boundaries, both in and outside of the organization, which might impact the program's success. One can deliberately assess differing standards, ethics, and viewpoints by looking at the broader system of interventions, policies, structures, patterns, and norms. Moreover, one can assess the interrelationships between them that might impact the disparities. Thus, it's possible to identify more powerful leverage points outside the program that can help with obesity. So, this is where leverage points can be found in a system. These are places within a system where changes can be made to sustain a more meaningful impact. If one were to look at some behaviors and actions that one might adopt with a team to increase the community's access to physical activity and social welfare, for instance, what might those behaviors or actions be? It is true that some leverage points are within the scope of a person's ability to change, but others are outside their scope as well. Some examples of behaviors and actions that could be adopted to increase access to physical activity and social welfare are providing access to affordable and safe recreational facilities, as well as increasing public transportation options and advocating for policy changes that would benefit the community. Leverage points within a person's scope could include encouraging others to get involved in activities, volunteering with local organizations, or speaking up at public meetings. Leverage points outside of a person's scope would include those that require a larger platform or resources, such as working with local or state governments to pass laws or regulations. As a result, it would still be useful to be aware of these as a program is being planned, even if they are minor items. It might not shift the peripheries of a particular plan, but it will expand the edges. Even the smallest details can help to create a more comprehensive plan of action. The more attention that is paid to the smaller details, the more informed decisions can be made about the overall program. This will help to ensure that the program is more effective and efficient. To ensure the evaluation capitalizes on the indispensable boundaries, diverse perspectives, and interrelationships of the system as pivotal leverage points, it is necessary to acknowledge the implications of varying viewpoints and principles from outside the program, as well as the interrelationships throughout the entire system. There's no way one can evaluate the whole system on a budget. In spite of that, a commissioned assessment will offer more strategic insights into how to manage obesity and other partisanship. Besides proposing ways to improve the program, the evaluation findings could lead to new collaborations or outside political developments in a society where infrastructure is an obstacle and where we can advocate for sustainable development together. So taking a systems approach helps you spot hidden patterns and interactions in societal challenges. Whether it's tackling obesity, inequality, or public health, considering multiple variables lets us come up with better, long-lasting solutions. And with that, recognizing personal shortcomings and areas for growth can contribute to personal development and career expansion. By leveraging this self-awareness, individuals can develop into influential leaders. This evolution of career and competence empowers them to make more informed collective decisions, as well as fostering wisdom-driven choices. In essence, it cautions that individuals who haven't addressed their own matters should approach global changes with caution. In line with this strategic problem solving, it's worth noting that certain challenges, often referred to as wicked issues, share traits of complexity, lack of resolution, global implications, and scientific foundations. These issues, such as climate change and human security, exemplify the intricate nature of modern societal dilemmas. So, what characterizes a wicked issue? These multifaceted challenges possess far-reaching influence, spanning diverse dimensions. Wicked problems are cross-cutting, unresolved, transnational, and science-based. For instance, climate change encompasses the economy, environment, and energy sectors, illustrating its comprehensive impact. These problems resist simple solutions, grappling with intricacies that elevate them to problem status. While unresolved, though, it's important to recognize their potential for resolution despite their current unsettled state. Furthermore, their transnational scope disregards borders, with matters like human security transcending national boundaries and directly affecting people's well-being. Moreover, these challenges are deeply intertwined with scientific foundations rooted in intricate relationships that drive their complexities. Big, messy problems like climate change, global health, and poverty are complex and interconnected. They touch on so many areas, making it difficult to reach straightforward solutions. Tackling these problems means collaboration, long-term strategies, and global cooperation. The Paris Agreement on Climate Change is an international agreement between 190 countries that aims to reduce global emissions of greenhouse gases. The agreement outlines a framework for countries to reduce emissions, adapt to climate change, and provide financial support to countries most severely affected by climate change. The difficult decisions that countries must make include setting emissions targets, investing in green technology, and transitioning their economies away from fossil fuels. These decisions often require a tremendous amount of political commitment, as well as a sizable number of resources. Furthermore, these decisions can be pricey in both financial and political terms. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals require countries to make difficult decisions, such as investing in green technology, transitioning their economies away from fossil fuels, and setting emissions targets. One of the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, is Goal 13, Climate Action. This goal focuses on strengthening resilience and adaptive capacity to climate-related hazards and natural disasters, as well as integrating climate change measures into national policies and implementing the Paris Agreement on Climate Change. Political determination and resources are necessary for these decisions, which can be expensive both financially and politically. Countries have to make complex decisions that often require a significant number of resources, and these decisions can be unpopular with certain groups or sectors of the population. Therefore, the leaders of these countries have to make tough decisions that require a strong political will to ensure that the necessary resources are allocated to achieve the SDGs. Global health is also a cross-cutting issue, as it affects all countries regardless of their level of development and is influenced by various factors, including the environment, economic development, and cultural practices. It is an issue particularly relevant to sustainable development, as a healthy population is necessary for economic growth and social progress. Additionally, global health is an issue that affects all countries, as the spread of infectious diseases knows no borders. The World Health Organization's global targets for non-communicable diseases is an example of a global health agreement that requires countries to make difficult decisions to ensure that all citizens have access to quality health care. This agreement highlights the need for international cooperation in addressing global health issues. It also highlights the need for countries to make difficult decisions to ensure that the necessary resources are allocated to achieve the targets. Unresolved problems are wicked because they initially appear challenging. We've seen them as problems because they're so complicated. There's no resolution. But that doesn't mean they're impossible to fix, just that they are not resolved yet. Examples of unresolved or complex issues include, as mentioned above, climate change, global health, poverty, food security, access to education, natural resource management, migration, and gender inequality. These issues are all complex and interconnected, making it difficult to develop a comprehensive solution. In the case of climate change, the lack of consensus and clarity has led to a lack of agreement on how to best address the issue. While poverty is often a result of systemic economic inequality, and access to education is limited in many parts of the world due to a lack of resources. Similarly, migration is often a result of geopolitical instability or economic disparities, and gender inequality is a result of both cultural and structural barriers. All of these issues require a multifaceted approach with both short-term and long-term strategies to be resolved. So let's look at a country as a case study. Yemen is one of the poorest countries in the world and is facing extreme poverty. Nearly half of the country's population lives below the poverty line, and over 20 million people need humanitarian assistance. Yemen's economy has been devastated by years of conflict, leading to a sharp decline in living standards and widespread food insecurity. The conflict has also resulted in the displacement of millions of people and the destruction of vital infrastructure such as hospitals, schools, and water systems. Poverty is a major factor in the spread of disease and malnutrition, and the country currently has one of the highest rates of malnutrition in the world. All of these factors, combined with a lack of access to healthcare and education, have created a dire situation in Yemen, one that requires an urgent and collaborative response. Solving the problems mentioned above is difficult due to the complexity and interconnected nature of the issues. To resolve these issues, a multifaceted approach must be taken. This approach should involve both short-term and long-term strategies. In the short term, it is crucial to provide immediate aid to those affected by the issues mentioned, including food and medical assistance. Long-term strategies should focus on creating sustainable solutions, such as providing access to education and healthcare, as well as creating economic opportunities for those living in poverty. Additionally, efforts should be made to create more stable political and economic environments and to address systemic inequality, meaning we have to improve their political institutions. Finally, collaboration between governments, organizations, and individuals is key in order to develop comprehensive solutions to these issues. These big issues, like migration, pandemics, and climate change, transcend national boundaries. They affect people across regions, requiring international collaboration and coordinated efforts. The COVID-19 pandemic is a prime example of how interconnected these challenges can be. The Syrian refugee crisis is also a transnational issue, since it has been ongoing since the start of the Syrian civil war in 2011. This is a wicked problem due to the complex and intertwined nature of the issue, as it involves multiple actors and stakeholders. The conflict has resulted in millions of people being displaced, with many of them seeking refuge outside of Syria. This has put a tremendous strain on countries in the region as well as countries that are hosting refugees. This is a transnational issue as it affects countries beyond Syria and requires collaboration among multiple countries to be effectively addressed. Attempts to resolve this issue include providing financial aid and humanitarian assistance to countries in the region, as well as accepting refugees into countries in the West and working towards a ceasefire in Syria. Lastly, wicked problems have a science-based component, meaning they do have a scientific component when it comes to solving them. In addition to these measures, scientific research is needed to gain a better understanding of the situation so that more effective solutions can be developed. This includes studying the underlying factors that have contributed to the conflict, as well as possible solutions, such as improving the economic and social conditions in the region. For example, the outbreak of the Zika virus is an example of a wicked problem with science-based component. Zika is a mosquito-borne virus that can cause a range of symptoms, including fever, rash, joint pain, and red eyes. It can also cause severe birth defects in babies born to women who have been infected during pregnancy. Countries around the world have worked together to develop effective strategies to prevent and control its spread. This includes vector control measures such as using insecticides to control mosquito populations, as well as education campaigns to raise awareness about the virus and its effects. Additionally, scientists and researchers have worked together to obtain a better understanding of the virus, its transmission, and its effects in order to develop more effective treatments and preventative measures. Given the encompassing nature of wicked issues, the question emerges: how can foreign ministries and diplomats effectively engage with them? Enter science diplomacy. This approach hinges on the developing expertise in scientific domains such as physics, chemistry, or biology, which enables interactions within the scientific community. Such as physics, chemistry, or biology, which enables interactions with the scientific community. This nuanced understanding helps diplomats process and manage these intricate matters, addressing a deficiency that has persisted thus far. Historically, foreign ministries and diplomats center their attention on territorial and ideological concerns during the Cold War. However, the challenges of the 21st century, specifically the interconnected and globalized wicked problems, are underscored by significant scientific and technological components. As a countermeasure, institutions must bolster their capacity to manage these complexities. This entails integrating scientific expertise within foreign ministries and diplomats while simultaneously immersing diplomatic entities in academic, research, and technological realms. By merging external knowledge with internal diplomatic efforts, not only are traditionally bureaucratic spaces invigorated, but also capacity is substantially enhanced. This augmentation enables more effective engagement with these intricate, wicked problems, fostering a more adept approach to their resolution. A wicked problem is an intricate social problem, some of which are more serious than others. They are difficult to solve since there is insufficient knowledge and too many opinions involved. They are interrelated with other problems, withstand settlement, and can be a significant economic strain. Wicked problems lack precise solutions. They bleed into each other, and there is always more than one interpretation. Solving one problem can reveal or even create another. Moreover, each explication is a one-time tint, so trial and error are not possible. Wicked problems are too complex to fix. However, they can be reduced, persuaded, perturbed, and oriented through design thinking. So in this first part, we unraveled the intricate web of wicked problems characterized by their global, science-based, and interconnected nature. From climate change and poverty to health crises and transnational migration, we've highlighted how these challenges defy simple solutions. Additionally, we introduced systems thinking as a valuable approach to dissecting these complexities, emphasizing the need for a holistic perspective and long-term strategies. Please stick around for part 2, where we'll dive deeper into how science diplomacy and systems perspectives can bridge the gap between science and policymaking. Together, we'll explore actionable insights and strategic frameworks to navigate these multifaceted issues effectively. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow for updates on part 2.